The journey underway, 25 laps. It started with Ron Clark back in 1961, and we're 58 editions forward. And in 2018, 23 competitors will start this 10,000 metre classic. It's one of the icons of the National Summer of Athletics here in Australia, a tradition that has been upheld by many of the greats of this sport. And in 25 laps' time, another will add their name to the honour roll, and perhaps one will add his name for a second time. So Stewart McSweyn is the tall figure in third place. Jordan Williams and Ryan Gregson are the pacemakers. The field is starting to split up early, and Craig, that would suggest that the pace is being set and we have a group that is going to go with it.
Yeah, look, there'll be a couple of pacemakers, I would imagine, in that field. The front group, led currently by Ryan Gregson. Following Ryan is Geordie, and then tucked in third, Stewie and Jack behind Stewie. They will have known, they will have worked on this for the last couple of weeks, so they know exactly what they're doing. They've probably done some work up at Falls Creek at this exact pace. And they'll be just settled in like they would a training session. They'll be trying to take the first 15 to 18 laps as easy as they can, much like the women did earlier. Settle in, try not to exert too much energy, find a nice rhythm and just focus on the man's back in front of you. And they've probably spoken about who's going to do what at what particular point in the race. So I don't think there'll be too many surprises through the first 15 laps or so in that front group. But the interesting thing is the decision for those runners in 4th, 5th and 6th to go with that pace and see whether they could be dragged out to a pace which might be well under their PB, and then see how they cope in the second half of the race. But if they're going at that 13:45 pace, which I think they are, there wouldn't be many men in that field that would sustain that beyond 3 or 4K, I would think.
So a couple of the men that are going with that pace at the moment is Jack Rayner, we mentioned before. Harry Summers is there too. Guzman is another, and that's Jack Bruce, the Queenslander, that is on the back of that leading group of 7. They're through 2 laps travelled. There's 23 laps to go as we see.
Yeah, bang on that 27:30 pace. 66 seconds a lap gives you the 27:30. I tried and failed many times in my career to do that. I was always on it at about this point, but then we got to the sort of 10, 11, 12 laps and I started to think, well, geez, this is a bit further than I wanted it to be. So look, the guys are bang on pace. Geordie and Ryan are very well experienced athletes. They know exactly what they're doing. They would run many laps at this pace every week, every month in preparation for the shorter distances, for the 1500, 800 and 3 and 5K that those guys do. So they'll be well practiced in this, as they would be running together. They train together 12 months of the year. And as most people here know, they've been up at Falls Creek training over the last 3 or 4 weeks in preparation for this, and also the summer. So this is nothing unfamiliar for them. They'll be just in their nice rhythm, taking it easy, concentrating on their breathing, settling in lane 1, and then and making sure that they're conserving energy. The runner in 5th, Harry Summers. Your guess is as good as mine as to how Harry goes tonight. Look, we know he's very talented. He's one of Australia's most talented runners. He's obviously gone out with the intent to run quickly, which is great. We know he can. When all things go well for Harry, he's very competitive and very hard to beat. And it looks at this early point in the race that he is focused and content and ready to give his all tonight, which is fantastic. And I wish him all the best and hope it goes really well. And I'm going to look forward to watching what happens in the last 5 or 10 laps with Harry.
Well, when we look at that lead group, McSweyn is obviously the defending champion, but Summers has been on the podium twice before, a 2nd and a 3rd place, so knows what it takes to be up there. Guzman knows how to win, albeit 1,500, 5,000 metre races, but we've seen him perform on the stage of the National Series as we see Andrew Buchanan lead that next group of competitors on the track, and around the bend it'll be 21 laps left to go the next time past the post for them. But Bruce, Guzman, Summers, we mentioned the talent. Rayner is another story. He's had an incredible year on the road, and the half marathon victory over in Europe, the Commonwealth title, speaks to his progression, and it's, I guess, his opportunity now to put it together on the track.
Oh, absolutely. Jack's been coming along very positively over the last 1 to 2 years. As everyone knows, he ran brilliantly over in Scotland in that half marathon, Com Games half marathon, to take that out, which was fantastic. It's very rare that Australian middle long distance runners win international titles, so to do that is fantastic. It improves his position in the pecking order within the training group that he currently resides, and I'm sure he enjoyed that, and I'm sure the other boys enjoyed ribbing him on all of that as well. But But they've got an amazing group. They train really well together, and we see it in particular each year when we come to the Zatopek and the middle long distance races here in Australia, the strength of Australian middle distance at the moment, which is brilliant. And we look forward to watching these guys progress. They're going to run quickly tonight. The intent is there. I think Ryan and Jordan are going to do the work here tonight at Zatopek, and then I think Stewie and Jack may lead them out in a mile next week in the Steigen. So when you've got that depth in the group and you can do that and provide that support for your fellow teammates, it really adds value and is a big reason for the success of those guys is the support that they have for each other within their group.
It's an interesting one that they do spend a lot of time training together, but you put them into a racing situation. And how do you break from being, I guess, friendly rivals on a training track to being rivals with national titles on the line out here tonight?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there's the two out in front, they're doing a job. They're here with a task to pace. I would imagine, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would think that they're here to pace much like the two were in the women's 10K. So the race is really Jack and Stewie from that group, but let's not discount the others. Summers and the other boys that are tacked onto that group there. They're certainly in the race at this point, very early stages at the moment, but I think all bets are off when it comes to racing, and they would know that, and they probably have a fair bit of good banter around it when they get back to their hotel room or their home after each of the races. But when they step foot onto that track, probably even in the warm-up, to be honest, they might warm up together, but each of them will be in their own headspace. They'll be getting ready, and they'll be knowing their strengths and the weaknesses of the other boys in the group, and they'll be trying to figure out a way to capitalise on that. And if we're looking at the splits, it's slowed just a little bit. They're still hovering around that 27:35 mark, which is fine. If they're feeling good within the last couple of Ks, you can wind that up. You can certainly make up time if you're feeling good, but if you've gone too hard too soon, you can lose a lot of ground in the last couple of K if you're suffering. So they're playing it really nicely, really calm and cool at the moment. Stewie looks smooth. He's just floating along in third. Obviously, his 5K form earlier this year was fantastic. Off the back of the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast at the beginning of the year, he's carried that form through, as has a lot of our Australian middle and long distance runners. It's been fantastic to sit at home here in Melbourne and watch that play out over in Europe, and to see the boys starting to really compete well competitively over in Europe is awesome. And as I said, I'm looking forward to watching him run in Australia. But for these guys to be in 27:30 shape in December, still a lot to play out now, but that certainly puts them in good stead. It's a great foundation for them to catapult themselves towards the World Championships later in 2019.
And it's a build that's been there for McSweyn for a little while. Of course, we talk about him winning last year and launching the year that he had, but we can't forget he was second the year before, and he's been thereabouts for a little while yet. He was probably spent more of his junior and early senior career as a steeplechaser, but he's found his niche. He's found where his talents are and what they can do for him, and he's probably starting to run with more confidence, and with that confidence we're starting to see the performances.
Absolutely. It's certainly something that doesn't happen overnight, but confidence is a huge part of it, and that comes from doing the training and then getting bits of success along the way, and just focusing on getting a little bit fitter each month, each year, and not expecting to write the record books in your first year. It's about taking baby steps and creating that foundation that allows you to continue to build, which is what he's done really, really well. Yes, he's come from the steeple, but that probably helped strengthen his body. I certainly think he's more suited to the flat races. He's got really nice rhythm. He's very smooth, you can see. He's opted for the no spikes tonight, and again, that's probably a little bit of security for longevity. Obviously, you don't want to pull up sore. Anything you do today shouldn't stop you from doing what you want to do tomorrow. These guys will head back up to Falls maybe tomorrow, maybe after Christmas. And they're looking at the long-term picture. Yes, they want to win the national title tonight. They want to win the time, get it out of the way, and ultimately success at the World Championships. But they'll also be thinking about the next training block they've got and the preparation they've got for the upcoming summer season here in Australia, and ultimately success at the World Championships in Doha later in the year.
Well, we see on the screen now Hudson of New South Wales. It's Matthew Hudson. He's leading that second group on the track, and they're trucking along in, I suppose, their own race. They've got their own schedule that they've got to work for, and they've quite comfortably come to terms with what their race will look like, but they're running to their own schedule, and there's a good group of runners there that are ticking along.
Yeah, absolutely. Those guys will have an agenda. They'll be looking to run, well, for most of them, be looking to run under that 29-minute mark. For some, maybe under the 29:30. But the qualification standards for the Zatopek are quite tough. So anybody that's out on the track today running 10K is you got your top 25 middle long distance runners in the country on the track in front of you right here, right now. So they can all run, believe me. But they'll be running to their own agenda. So look, if they really wanted to, they could probably be with that front group 9 laps in, but they wouldn't be there 25 laps in. So they've made the decision to run at their own pace. They've settled in and they're on their own agenda, which is spot on, which is fantastic. I've asked Tim to my right here to get some splits on that second group so that if we've got people at home wanting to know how their training partners or friends are going, we'll certainly try to update you on that. But from all accounts, it's in single file, which to me means it is the pace is on, and that second group, just an update, 29:10 is their targeted time, or what we've got them down for at the paces that they're going at the moment. So they're certainly on that 29:10 pace. Some of them will be hoping to run that sub 29, which would be a big bucket list item for many of them. And some of them will be in the unknown, I would imagine. They'll be out there thinking, well, I'm just going to get on it and see how long I can last.
So Matthew Hudson, Andrew Buchanan and Lewis McAfee are our top 3 as we look back at our leaders, and the pace at the front has started to quicken, and we're starting to see a couple of our competitors just suffer a little bit. Harry Summers and Bruce of Queensland just starting to drop off now. It's Guzman that's going with them. So the battle has started to whittle away a couple.
Yeah, the pace is consistent. It's not picking up, but it's just doing the damage. Time on legs is what does the damage. First K 2:45, second 2:48, third 2:49, and the fourth they've just completed 2:48. So the pace is very consistent. 250 pace is 28:20 for 10K. But these guys are still around that 29:35, 29:40, so they're not far off it. But again, very, very early stages at the moment. The big one for me is the 5K split, that 13:45 to 13:50. If you're in range there, then that 27:30 mark is definitely within range. And I think Stewie will be doing it quite comfortably. And I'd imagine he's instructed the 2 out in front, just get me there within range and then let me do the running in the second half. That'll be how he'd be approaching it. That's what I would have done. And then get stuck into it from there.
And we're seeing Guzman just start to suffer just that little bit more. You talked about the time on legs. Time at that pace is just starting to prove a little tough for him. He's dropped back. Summers and Bruce are behind him. Then it's the best part of 150 metres as we go from Bruce back to that chase group, which had been headed by Lewis McAfee, Matthew Hudson and Andrew Buchanan on the track. But it's Jordan Williams leading that group of 4. He's setting the tempo. It's been consistent. And in terms of calibre of athletes that could be setting pace for, it's not too bad to have 2 of Australia's best 1,500 metre runners out there for you.
Be nice, wouldn't it? But Stewie looks really good. He's running into the back of Ryan quite a bit. He'd be checking his spikes. Gregson would know he was there. He'd be scraping the back of his feet. And Jack would be trying to do the same to Stewie, although Jack's just drifting a little bit on and off. I think maybe that's the way he runs. I don't know him that well, but I think the pace will be starting to, they'll be feeling it now. We're not far away from halfway. They're coming up just over 4.5K now, so they're starting to feel it a little bit. They're well into the race, but all 4 of them look brilliant. They still look really smooth. Geordie starting to grimace a little bit at the front. He's not beyond his distance, but he's certainly up on his distance at the moment. But again, these guys will be running big volume in training. They're running 130 plus kilometres a week. They'd be doing their 30-minute tempos and things like this. So time out there is not a big issue for them, but the pace in which they're doing those laps will be starting to take a toll on them as they approach halfway. We'll get a split for you. But I reckon all things considered, it is going perfectly to plan at the moment.
So they're going the best part of 100 metres for them until we reach that halfway stage, Gregson. You can see Williams just peeling out, McSweyn and Rayner. So we'll watch the clock as they go through around about that 13:55 mark there, Craig, which is starting to set them up for the schedule, maybe just a little bit slower than the schedule they're after.
Yeah, but you can make that up. 10 seconds is, look, it sounds like a lot, but if Stewie's feeling good, he looks good, he's got the arm warmers on. I don't know if it's that cold out there, but maybe that's got something to do with performance, I don't know. But the interesting thing there, Geordie, I wonder what his PB is for 5K. He's just rolled through in 13:55 on the front, which is a huge indication of his level of fitness, which is fantastic for him for 1500s over the coming months. But Stewie does look good. He looks really smooth. He's all over the back of Gregson. Jack's working. He looks like he's working a little bit. He's not as smooth as Stewie probably naturally, but he's certainly going to tough this one out. He's hanging on the back. 13:55, maybe a little bit off the pace they were hoping for, but it is certainly still quick. That is 27:50. I don't think we've had many Australians run under 27:50 on Australian soil, so no matter what happens from here, I think they're on for a pretty quick time. Stewie The gap opening a little bit to Jack, as we can see on the screen, and those in the crowd can see that down the back straight. Stewie actually had a quick look around just to see where Jack is. He may well be encouraging Jack to keep up with the pace. That support that these guys have for each other is pretty strong within that group, and they want everybody to do well. Success creates more success, so they would obviously be wanting the other athletes within their group to do really well. So Stewie may well be actually enticing Jack, come on, let's get another lap or two in, and then trying to keep him on pace to run a quick time. But it certainly looks like Ryan and Stewie have cleared out. Not sure, we'll get a split for you whether Ryan's picked the pace up or not, or whether it's just that constant, relentless 67-second pace which is doing the damage. But Stewie looks smooth. He'll be starting to think about at this point, okay, how long have I got with Ryan? Not long, he's out. Right, so 64-second lap for Ryan's last lap there. So he's squeezed the button just a little bit, and he's catapulted Stewie on to the last 11 laps of his 10K tonight. And I would expect he's not going to get slower. I would think he'll wind it up from here, and he'll be looking to go as far into 27.50 as he can as he makes his way round some of those lap runners. He will be looking to build that pace, and he may well have been set the task to see how quickly you can run the last 5 or 6 laps. It'd be great to watch. And
where he's been dropped off is almost perfect, because he is in touch with that group of lapped runners, and they're almost staggered in front of him at intervals that gives him something to continue to work towards. It can be lonely going out the front of a 10,000 metre race with 10 laps to go and being one out, but he's got company, and that could hopefully keep him rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to get around him. That's the only challenge. But the boys out in front, if they're listening, stay in lane 1. Let Stewie roll round you. He will. He's experienced in this. He's got a nice rhythm going. And he'll just make his way around. It's not as complicated as it may look. He'll just make his way around, but he'll be keeping those even splits for as long as he can. He's got 10 laps to go, so not yet in single figures, so hopefully he hasn't looked up. He's still got 1 lap to go before he gets down to that magical 9, and this is when it starts to get hard. You look up and you think, geez, I've only got 4 or 5 to go, but he's looking very, very smooth, nice and strong, as is Jack. Jack's lost a little bit of ground, but he's still looking pretty smooth. The interesting thing to look back through the field, trying to find my way back through some of those lapped runners, is we've still got Harry Summers coming over the finish line now. Still looking pretty good, but does that second group, that big second group that we saw head out a little bit more conservative, catch up with Harry? Although Harry and that group of 3 there are still on 28.30 pace. So they're still rolling around that 252, 251 per K pace. But looking like they're finding the going pretty tough. But 28.30, that's a hell of a run as well. So those guys are still rolling along beautifully. But Stewie McSweyn up in front, making his way up into the home straight in front of the crowd, which get access to that track, which is a huge highlight for them. Looks smooth.
Another one that we can keep an eye out for amongst the pack, Michael Roger from the ACTs, one of the Paralympic athletes amongst. He's had an incredible year. He set a world record in the marathon in Melbourne, and the time that we'll watch out for him at the end of the race, 30 minutes 15:35. Now that is the world record in the T46 category. It was held by Spain's Jose Javier Conde, who was set back in 1992. That is another race within a race, and that's the great thing about this 10,000 metres. It's not just what's happening out in front, but it's what's happening in and amongst the pack. And Craig, you were talking about before, not many people have run 27.50. And now we look at the all-time record, and particularly Australians here. There's only 2 that have sat inside that when we look at the entirety of it. Our top 10 times 8 are run by Kenyans. Sean Crichton and Darren Wilson have run inside that top 10, and then it comes out to Steve Monaghetti and yourself at 27.50 that have set that time in and around this meet. So it shows you that it's not an easy accomplishment, but having Stewart out the front and what he's working through is showing the calibre of the athlete and the calibre of the time and run that he's on. Absolutely,
and I think a lot of those runs that you mentioned there probably did have that international support, like we saw with Niwa in the women's 10K that pulled Sinead through to a massive PB. But Stewie's going to be doing this the hard way. He had company through nearly 6K, but this will be a long 4K for him. But he's maintaining that 66 high pace, so he's actually, that one was a quicker lap than the one previous, so he's maintaining that strong rhythm. Let me tell you, 66, 67 is not easy to do after 16 or 17 laps, so he's into some really serious running at the moment, and he looks nice and smooth. He's probably running a little bit quicker than that, to be honest, because he's lapping a lot of people every lap, so he's probably running 405 metres every time he goes around. But he's still looking smooth, he's still looking strong, and he's holding that sort of 27.35, much like Sinead was with her time. They're around the mark, and being conservative in the first half can really help you in the second half, provided you've got the legs to run on.
It's a good point you made around having athletes to run with, because when you look at this all-time ranking, Luke Kosgei, the record holder, has got the top 3 times, but his third and fourth fastest times was done with his compatriot in Julius Kipto in 97. The next 2 fastest times were both in 96, Sean Crichton and Darren Wilson. Then we looked to 2011 when it was Emmanuel Bett and Bitan Karoka that ran head-to-head in a race. So proof is in the pudding that having competition there is going to drive through, exactly as you said. But Stewart has the task there ahead of him, and he's rolling quite smoothly.
Oh, he is. Another 67.50 for that lap, so he's looking smooth. I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it. It depends on the type of athlete you are. Some people like to have that competitive contest going on within the race. They really thrive on it. Where others like that open, smooth rhythm like what Stewie's got going at the moment. I don't know which one he'd prefer. I'm sure he'd prefer company right now. But you know, he's a very smooth mover, so I think he's going to find that rhythm of that 66, 67 second lap pace that he's doing at the moment. Not comfortable, but maintainable, and it's going to be interesting over the next 7 laps or so whether he is able to wind that up. It's a really difficult thing to continue to wind that pace up is actually quite hard to do, but he is really, really fit. So coming straight down from the mountain from Falls Creek, I think he was down Monday night. 48 or so, 72 hours before he's lined up here to race, and he's looking brilliant.
And he can look up now at the lap count. We're down to single figures, and it'll be 6 laps to go for him the next time past the start-finish post. And he's moved through that next contingent of lapped runners, and now the best part of 100, 200 metres of clean track in front of him in clean air. And before it's Jordan Guzman, who will be the next athlete in front of him to chase down. But we're inside 6 laps to go in the Zatopek, and Stewart McSweyn, the King Island native, made his way to Ballarat, went through his schooling and has started to really flourish on the world stage since making the move to that Melbourne Track Club group. Of course, spent a lot of his junior career at the Eureka Athletic Club under Rod Griffin, who's had many an athlete come through. Collis Birmingham, another one of the ilk that came through that Eureka Athletic Club stable, and it's really a heart of distance running up there in Ballarat that's worked together and built a culture, and now he's starting his own traditions, own cultures amongst that Melbourne Track Club group.
Absolutely. He's the leader within that group. I mean, they've got some of the best runners in Australia, both men and women, and as I mentioned earlier, that success continues to breed success, but that environment has been going a long time, back into the mid-90s, early 90s, with some of our best shorter distance athletes as well. So it's not something that's been built over the last 12 to 24 months. It's been something that's been established for a long time, and has been a cultivator of some of our best athletes over many, many years. And Stewie's just another one of the products that that has gone into it as a very talented athlete, but has continued his development within that setting. And as we see with a lot of our Australian athletes, they need and want that opportunity to get over to Europe and race. And Stewie certainly made the most of that. And his pace, still pretty consistent. The last lap we saw with Ryan Gregson, the last K split rather with Ryan before he pulled off, was 2:44. We've now got Stewie hitting 2:50 for the 8th kilometre. So he's still on that 27:45 pace, just drifting a little bit, but still maintaining a very, very strong rhythm. The interesting question is Jack Rayner, within 60 metres of him at the moment. Can he get under 28 minutes? That'll be what's playing in his mind at the moment. That is one of those bucket list items. If you're running 27 anything in 10K, that's a hell of a run. So he'll be starting to work the math through in his mind. But I can tell him, if he's listening, he is on sub 28 minute pace at the moment. He needs to continue moving forward and stay within range of Stewie. But both those athletes still maintaining really good rhythm, really good form. And this is what Falls Creek and the miles in the legs do for you. They just allow you to maintain good hip position, good foot strike. We see Stewie on the screen at the moment. He's nice and nice and light on his feet. Front half of the foot, 4-foot striker, always has been. But no spikes. We mentioned that early. Still nice, smooth, strong rhythm. Jack just sits down a little bit more than Stewie does, but still looking very smooth. And it's not about how they run, it's about how that changes as they get tired. So Jack starts out like that, and he's still maintaining that rhythm. So for me, that means he's still holding his form really, really well, and it's the same with Stewie. You start to look in fatigue, whether they start to sit down or they change their gait and things like that. But the two out in front still look very, very smooth.
So McSweyn will move round the bend, and the crowd up on the rope there. He'll have 4 laps to go the next time past. In fact, it might even be 3. So McSweyn is going to move into the home straight now, back to Rayner in second place. So it's about a 50-metre gap there, but it's McSweyn that'll have 3 laps to go next time past the post and continues to work his way through the lapped runners.
Yeah, and he's maintaining his form. You can't see him on the screen for all those on the... Well, you can actually. There he is coming in behind Anderson there with 3 to go. He's on 27.55-ish pace. He started to slow a little bit, which is what happens when you get to this point in the race. He's been on his own for the best part of 10 minutes, which is very, very challenging. And, you know, he, as we've mentioned previous, he's probably in quite a heavy workload as well. So in his mind, he'll be starting to work really, really hard, and he'll be starting to think, I'd rather be at home having lasagna at the moment, but I'm going to get through the next couple of laps and concentrate as best that I can. He's coming up to a K to go, so those people on the far bend on that 200 metre mark, get behind him, because this is very, very tough. He'll be working hard. He's going really, really nicely, looking very good, holding his form, but he will be working, believe me. As will Jack Rayner. Jack's on about that 28.10 pace. Stewie's on that sub 28, so we want to get Stewie under 28 minutes tonight. So make sure you let him know. He's coming up to 2 to go, so he's inside 900 metres now, well inside the final K. He's going to need to roll out 267 laps to run under that 28-minute mark.
So McSweyn will have that 2 laps to go as he sights the post, and it'll be the next time round that he gets the bell. Summers is in the home straight with him, so the margin has extended slightly. Dare say McSweyn has held his pace. Rayner maybe just dropped off a little bit. But we're inside the last 800 metres of the Zatopek 10 for 2018. McSweyn looking to go back-to-back. He'll be the first man to do so since 2011, 2012, when Emmanuel Bet, the Kenyan, came out here. An Australian hasn't done it since the mid-90s, and Steve Monaghetti. So it shows you how hard it is to go back-to-back in this race. And McSweyn still continues to plug away. Approaching 600 metres left to go, Craig, and the home stretch would be in his sights now. He'd be thinking, one more time past this crowd, one more time past the start-finish line, and I've got this race.
Yep, absolutely. He'd probably be thinking back to his known training locations in Tasmania or King Island and those sort of places where he remembers the 600 metres a mark to go, and he'll be playing that out in his mind, and he'll make it from here, no doubt. He's actually picking the pace up a little bit. He's got Nick Earl in front of him from Melbourne Athletic Club, Melbourne Uni Athletic Club, so he'll have his eyes on him. Harry Summers is just making his way past. He'll probably get his eyes up on him just to keep that energy, keep that focus and enthusiasm going. He's got about 65 seconds of hard running left to go. As he banged out 66 for that lap, so he's still rolling along very nice. He's actually picking up the pace. He'll run under 20. He'll definitely run under 28 minutes here. He'll run 27.50 off that, and you watch. He'll run this last lap in probably under 60 seconds, I reckon.
So McSweyn is rolling. Rayner has taken the bell as well, as we're inside the last lap of the Zatopek for 2018. McSweyn, King Island born, Ballarat raised and bred, as he moves on to the world stage here. He came to prominence with his win last year in Melbourne, and he'll round the bend inside 150 metres left to go for Stewart McSweyn, looking to elevate his standing into the pantheon of great distance running names who have claimed this mighty title on more than one occasion. He enters the home straight now, the back-to-back titles in sight as he looks to the crowd. He knows it's his. 28 minutes is a magical barrier in 10-kilometre racing, and he's going to do that. 27.50. McSweyn is king, not only of King Island, but of the track of Lakeside Stadium and the Zatopek, the 58th edition in 2018.
Yeah, that's a great run, and how easy to do 60-second last lap. Look, just cruising, pointing at the crowd down that home straight. Jack Rayner making his way, 30 metres or so to go. 28.10 ticks over, 28.12. Jack will run for 10K. That's a great run. The two of them train together, probably live together at Falls Creek. They know each other very, very well, and that's a great run and a great result from both Stewie and Jack. A hell of a run. 27.50s never looked so good. Nice and smooth, nice relaxed rhythm. They both work. Stewie looks like he's worked. Nice tempo for him. He'll get out for a long run tomorrow and get back stuck into a session on Saturday, I reckon, and might even head back to Falls Creek for another week before Christmas.
Well, 28.05 was his best coming into that, so he's gone well under that. And for Jack Rayner as well, 28.59 was his best, and he's gone around that 28.19, so 40 seconds off. And it just shows a great performance, as we've seen Bruce of Queensland come in to take third place in the Zatopek. An impressive performance by him.
It's very solid running from all of those boys out in the front. That front group went out with serious intent to run around the 27.30 mark. Stewie held on really well. Jack held on really well. Some of them, Harry is working. He's making his way through to the finish line now. He's going to go that 29.20-ish, which is a good run, slowing off that 28.30 pace that he had earlier on in the day. in the race, but going very, very well.
And in fact, watch Michael Roger come through, 29.25. I think that might have just snuck inside the world record for the T46. In fact, more than snuck inside. The world record was 30 minutes 15 seconds, so we'll have to get that verified. But a sensational run from Michael Roger there in the Zatopek 10.
He has the proverbial in that one. He's made that very comfortably and very happy about it as well, pointing to the crowd as he came over the finish line. 29.30 odd. That's a fantastic run. Very, very happy with that. World record. Who would have thought at the Zatopek tonight we would have seen a world record? What a fantastic result that is.
Fantastic result, and it just adds to the suite of world records that he has. He's got the 1,500, the 5,000, the 10,000, now the marathon. So he's got well and truly got a stranglehold on it all.
Yeah, fantastic. That's some brilliant running as some of the rest of the field make their way in. The 30-minute mark, that golden 30-minute mark has just ticked over. Many of the boys that are making their way over the finish line now would have had that as their goal tonight, to run 30 minutes, so very, very close. Pretty good distance running weather tonight as the rain starts to fall here at Lakeside, just at the right time to cool many of these athletes off. I'm sure they were hoping it had rained a little bit 20 minutes ago as they were well into their running in that 10K. But all in all, back-to-back win by Stewart McSweyn, hell of a run. Under 28 minutes, rarely we see that here in Australia. Rarely we see it, someone running that solo from sort of 12 laps out. Like Stewie did today. Big credit goes to Geordie and to Ryan for their pacing duties. They've done their job there, and I'm sure they'll be looking forward to Stewie and Jack repaying that favour down at the Saigon next week over the mile.
Well, we can see on the replay that we've got on the screen the grimace on his face. He was composed, but he was really working that last lap, and he took the opportunity to say thank you to the crowd, to salute. He knew the achievement that he had brought here this evening at the Zatopek. And the two-fingered salute for 2 titles here and going back-to-back. The first Australian to do so since the mid-90s. And he's downstairs with Tamsin Manu.
Feeling pretty privileged standing here with you. 2018, Stewie McSweyn, is there anything you can't do?
Yeah, I don't know. It was a good year. I've still got to get better if I want to try and do a lot on the world stage. So it was a big improvement this year, but I've still got to step it up for 2019 if I want to be a contender next year.
Goodness, I'm scared to think what you're going to do in 2019 because you did pretty impressive, especially that Elmsley Car Mile in Birmingham. Talk to us about the conditions. We've seen you training in snow at Falls Creek. What was it like out there tonight?
Yeah, I think the pretty rough weather at Falls made it kind of similar to this. We're running in a lot of snow a couple of days. There was a bit of wind. But yeah, it kind of, once the pace dropped down the race, it was pretty hard in that headwind. So I just tried to run even, hold on, and I was lucky enough I had a lot of support around the whole track. So I think that made a difference when the going got tough, probably 3 or 4 laps left.
Yeah, you ran the last, I think, 4.4K on your own. So were you happy with the way that the race planned out?
Yeah, I was. I thought if everything went well, I could go close to that 27.24, but I think it shows Oz records aren't easy, so I'm still 26 seconds off that. So we'll wait and see what 2019 holds, but yeah, I'm still got a lot of work to do if I'm going to get to that mark.
Okay, so 2019's the World Champs. We've seen you be fantastic at 3K steeple. You ran so fast over 5K this year. You've obviously just won the National Championship at 10K. What are we going to see you doing at the World Champs and then Tokyo Olympics?
Yeah, I think I'm lucky I'm not bad over from 15 to 10K, so hopefully I'll have options going into World Champs, but focus is just to make the team first, but I would like to try and do a few more 15s and miles this year because I think it showed this year I can run fast over it, so I want to have a bigger crack at that, but yeah, I'll keep doing a mile while I can, so they kind of all work together pretty well for me at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're doing pretty well. Ladies and gentlemen, your national champion over the 10K, Stewie McSweyn.